Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Healthspan Academy. I'm your host, Craig Shearhart, and joining me today is my good friend, Ron Mourra, who is an online specialist coach in fat loss. And Ronnie's been involved in this business for coming up on 20 years. He first got his grad degree from University of Waterloo in Bachelor of Science in kinesiology, and then went on to become a certified kinesiologist and boot camp specialist, and did that for 15 years. And then did a little bit of work in fundamental fitness and conditioning, starting his own business called Lean Fit Healthy. And right now he's exclusively coaching online, helping people, specifically like adults with busy lifestyles, burning fat and getting healthier. Ron, thanks for being here today.
Hey, excited to be here, Craig. Great to see you.
Cool, man. I want to start with probably the most pressing topic of 2020, 2021, which is pandemic. I assume we'll be talking about this for a few years afterwards. Yeah. Talk about how that's impacted what you're seeing from your clients and your business structure.
Yeah, great question. Well, I've been fortunate enough prior to the pandemic. I've been an online coach for 3 years. So prior to the pandemic, I was already positioned. So my clients were working with me remotely on the app, but immediately once most of my clients are stressed out parents, whether they work out at home, some at gyms. Yeah. And a big thing was when the pandemic hit, schools are shut down or they were open and closed. Parents struggled, and, a lot of my clients struggled with alcohol consumption, Uber eating a bit too much, and the check-ins, they weren't doing as much on the app. So, I stepped up my support, checking in with them and just kind of let them know that what they're going through is normal. It is a pandemic. It's unprecedented times. So, don't be so hard on themselves, but also come up with an action plan that they can make progress, because back then it was still early on. No one knew what was going to happen and unfold. So it was just kind of controlling what you can, coping with what you can, and concentrating on what matters. Those 3 C's. I'm a big stoic, a fan of stoicism. So I really push that onto my students as well, to kind of control what they're able to do when things are unpredictable.
Crazy, man. Who knew it would be almost 2 years later, we're still stuck in this, and we just keep still going. It's like,
the interesting thing is, what a time. Like, I have to look back and say, if there was a pandemic to happen and to go through it, this is probably one of the best times. I mean, think about it. You can do Zoom businesses. We can have food ordered in. I'm very blessed. I'm privileged that way, where my business didn't get disrupted. I'm very fortunate that I don't have my brick and mortar, but so I was kind of safeguarded. But I think for most people, like, we had a lot of, digital world. There's a lot of things that made us, improve, but obviously there's a lot of downfalls to it. But I look at it as a different perspective, and man, like with Zoom, like our day-to-day didn't change too much. Obviously our schools, and we're home a little more, but we're still doing Amazon orders. Things can get delivered to us. So we're just fortunate because it happens every 100 years, right? I mean, it's not. True. It's not, for our lifetime, it's not common, but historically speaking,
that would have been nuts being in the how would you even know there's a pandemic? Like, you'd have to, like, if you're door to door, it's just,
and that's
crazy.
There's no way. You're in your village and you're not getting information from different places. So you just kind of have to deal with it. And I have an interesting perspective where I lived through a war. I was born in Kuwait, and I lived there till the Gulf War, Desert Storm. So I was kind of used to it. Like, we were locked down for a month before we got hired a driver to take us to Jordan. So it was like, hey, my parents just taught me, what are you going to do? There's nothing you can do.
COVID's like a cakewalk after that.
But obviously, a lot of people are affected. So I don't want to discount that.
For sure.
The perspective always helps me. At least.
No. Yeah. I love that, man. So I want to talk a little bit about the process when you meet with somebody. So people obviously have their own limitations and busy lifestyle and all this stuff. So talk me through your first meeting with somebody. How does that conversation go? How do you start setting goals? How do you start building wins with people?
Yeah, absolutely. So the big thing is, whenever I enroll someone in the program, we have an in-depth info call. I want to make sure that they're ready for coaching. And I only will work with people if they're ready. I don't take on people who want to do like a 21-day challenge or 30-day challenge to get ready for the beach either. My program typically takes a year to complete. So when I meet with them, I want to be able to manage their expectations and make sure that they're ready to tackle this as but in a way where we're going to take stock of where they are and start to add habits and get them some quick wins, but not just the scale going down. It's, maybe just reducing their food, being, tracking a bit more, being more aware. So it's letting them know that this is going to be a journey. It didn't become overweight overnight. It's going to probably take you a year, but I usually start people off with 3 months. So we have habits that we want to focus on. Mm-hmm. But the first month, a lot of people, the biggest barrier is working out. It's a big stress to them. So I take it off the table. I say, we won't worry about working out except walking, and then slowly add in, 5 minutes of working out to 10 minutes. So my clients are not athletes. Some are new to fitness. Others have failed in the past. So I don't want to just stick them in the gym and force them to work out. I want to teach them the fundamentals of fat loss. And as you probably know, nutrition is probably the best place to start.
For sure. Yeah. That's one of the things I've struggled with most, I think, and you probably can identify with that. When you first start coaching, you're an athlete, you're used to people being athletes. And when you get people that are like afraid of a gym or like have this anxiety around fitness, it's a totally different game. So did it take you a long time to figure out how to meet clients where they're at?
Great question. It did when I had a lot of hands-on. So when I used to have a gym, Fundamental Fitness had a business partner, we would always take people through a tour, and some people were even afraid to book. They would cancel on their consultation. Yeah. And I'm trying to figure it out until I had this one client come in, and they just said they were very scared to step foot in the gym. They had a bad experience in the past.
Right.
So then I put myself in their shoes. Yeah. Like, why would I expect if, let's say, for example, I wasn't good at a sport, let's say golf, would I just go into a golf course and feel confident? So I needed someone, I would need someone there. So I would meet them in the front door, walk them through some of the testimonials. I would always introduce them to a boot camper who's been there for a while, so they have an ally, and then really build that community aspect, because people are afraid of starting something new. And if they failed in the past, so really getting them to feel comfortable. And I would never have them work out their first time coming in. So I learned that we need to take exercise slowly, because, you don't want to put someone in a boot camp setting, get them excited. And then, who knows, they can get injured. There's so many factors. They might not enjoy it. Or they might just get used to trying to exercise their way out of it versus learning the fundamentals of nutrition and finding the right dose of exercise that they can not only elicit a response, but then for compliance. I always look at compliance over a certain response we're trying to get to.
Absolutely.
That patient.
100%. So you mentioned that finding the right dose, and that's obviously important. And sometimes you kind of have to start with whatever they're capable of physically or based on their schedule. So what kind of questions are you asking to figure out? Like, obviously we want people working out probably 3-4 days a week on average, maybe 5. Probably don't need more than 5. You get some gym addicts beyond that, but how do you walk someone through that? If someone's like afraid to get into a gym and maybe some people can work out at home, but if you got somebody that needs to go to a gym, they don't have a physical space otherwise, what does that conversation look like?
Yeah, so I would even start the conversation. Okay, what have they tried in the past? And in the last 3 months, what on average, how many times, if they had a membership, let's say, did they step foot in the gym?
Yeah.
And some people might say only 1 or 2. Then the goal would be, okay, so this week I want you to go to the gym and just go on the treadmill for 5 minutes. That's it. And then if you want to do 10 minutes, good. But I don't want to, because it's done remotely, I have a array of exercises, videos. I don't want them worrying about technique at all. I just say, can you go to the gym first? And then can we do 5 minutes? Okay, great. Now, are you 10 out of 10 confident you can bump it up for that one time a week to 10 minutes? Okay, great. And then eventually add an extra day. So it's very slow. They've got to be 10 out of 10 confident they can do it. And most importantly, we'll track it on the app. And if they miss a workout, I get notified and we kind of hash it out. Okay, was it the wrong day? And I always teach my clients to push it to the next day. So typically, most people, at least parents, the Monday is always a tough start to the week. So I set the workouts for Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday.
Nice.
Also having a buffer. So they missed a Tuesday, they just push it to Wednesday. That's cool. No problem.
Yeah.
And so on and so forth. They just try to get to the point where they're consistent and identifying what the roadblocks are to the compliance. If they're taking on too much, there's too much travel time, then we address it. But it's just getting them, sometimes just getting that membership, getting them through the door. 5 minutes at a time, because most people can dedicate 5 minutes. But if you start with an hour, they're like, that's a big hurdle for people.
That's a big commitment for sure.
Yeah. Then you got to wake up earlier. You got to get your clothes ready. You got to drive, and then you got to come home. So you want to set them up to succeed and just make it super simple that anyone can do it.
Yeah. An hour workout turns into like a 2-hour commitment pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. With travel time and showering and changing and kid pickup. It's
it's
I got 2 young kids of my own, and my main priority is keeping them fed and not cranky.
Yeah, life's less predictable, I think, that way when you have kids factored in, right? Which is
there's always
sick and busy, or something happens at school, like you never really know. So and there's no way of knowing without living it. So I think that's probably what makes you really good at what you do. I want to dial in the conversation or move it towards nutrition. You mentioned that off the top. Obviously, that's a huge piece. If people are looking to lean out, I think most people have a general idea what they should be doing, right? They have an idea that calories in, calories out. We need a deficit if we want to lose. We need a surplus if we want to gain. But it's tough to get started. And, I think we can kind of overcoach that sometimes. We can throw too much at them. So when you're having that nutrition conversation, what are your tactics in meeting them where they're at and figuring out what that next step is for them?
Yeah, great question. So it would start along the lines of what they've tried in the past and what were they successful at?
Right.
What have they tried in the past that was really extreme? And then coming together on a decision whether they want a framework of eating. Like I give people a framework of, if they're going to track their own calories, Monday to Friday, they have a budget, and then the weekend, or if they want their meals, I've got like detailed like meal plan, what works best for them. So we'll do 2-week experiment. Right. But the biggest thing I tell people is I don't want them to overhaul. Majority of the people are actually eating well during the week. So I'm not going to change that. I always look at the weekends. If most people just fix the weekends, that's where they go wrong. So I don't need to introduce, because I had this one particular client that was during the week, she ate well, but she's like, do you think I'm eating too much fruit and all that? And I'm like, oh man, like I've got to educate this person that it's not what you're doing on the weekend. Cause I see the trend from the Friday to the following Monday. Yeah. But I want my clients, I don't want to solve their problems. I want them to see it because, when they lose the weight, I want them to realize that I was just part of the process, but just I gave them the tips, but they did it themselves. So I want them to get that epiphany of when their weight goes up, but she didn't get it. So then that's the biggest thing where I don't really, we'll look at the trends, do 2-week experiments, but the biggest indicator is the Friday to the following Monday weigh-in. And if it's more than 2 pounds, I call it weekenditis. So we want to prevent weekenditis. Obviously it's water intake, sodium, depending on how someone eats. So I don't want them. And I want them to be okay if the scale goes up, because I want them to detach, and it's just data for me. Yeah. I can teach them, what's going on in their body, and it's normal. It's predictable. Like I'm not surprised when my weight is up, and I'm not surprised when it goes down.
It's just never a linear path, right? You're going to fluctuate. Stress levels, all that stuff, hormones, all that stuff impacts it too. And
sleep, absolutely.
And we're in a pandemic.
That too. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So let's talk about, the ideals. So as theoretically, there's different directions we can go with what the ideal is. Is the ideal keto? Is it paleo? Is it vegan for some people?
Yeah.
Do you try to choose an ideal that's closest to what they're doing? Or where do you sort of shape that conversation?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want, when I have a client who has done a certain, I don't want to call it fad diet. I mean, let's say they went keto and they were successful. I'm not going to butt heads and say what you did, because I think all diets work. It's just finding the right dose and the right strategy for someone for them to be successful.
Right.
So based on where they are and what they've done, most people will do better if they reduce their carbs, but educating them at the end of the day, the reason you're losing weight is because you've created that deficit and you prioritize your calories. So I always get them to prioritize calories and protein as much as possible, all the things. Right. But if they like more fat, then I dial the fat up and reduce the carbs. So it depend on what the person has done in the past, but most of the time, reducing like the easy stuff, like the breads, the pastas, the bagels, that would solve everything, and introduce more. I like to add things versus just take away. I think if you just teach someone to add more fruits and vegetables, naturally it's going to replace the other stuff, but it's less of, saying you can't eat this, you can't eat that. It's more, hey, let's add more of this and see how your body feels. And then they're going to notice they feel better. And, I always encourage like fruits and vegetables, like to a max. Like I would never eat 10 apples a day, right? One apple is enough. I'm not going to eat a whole watermelon. So I'm not going to eat them. It is possible, yes, that you can overeat on fruit, but I don't think your palate will let you unless you're, depending on where you live. Or
that's true. I think it's pretty rare.
Yeah.
You can't write anything off, but it's probably low chances of failing there. So you mentioned like dial down the carbs is the main thing. I think that's a great low hanging fruit too. It's like, I feel like that's the cheapest option too. So when you take carbs down, your budget usually goes up. Do you find that the research basically tells us it doesn't matter if it's fats or carbs you're cutting, it's just calories, right? At the end of the day. And I think there's some value in keto and lowering your like insulin spikes and helping kind of manage your appetite. But you're more concerned with where they're starting and what their preferences are to kind of create those small wins. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because we're not in a lab setting where we can control everything. I know how most humans are. And even if they were to track on my app, I know that there's probably errors. So I need to give them a buffer of some sort. Yeah. So that's why I like to manage. I if they're going to track on their own during the week, I get them to hit a target that usually it's lower than what they actually eat. So I'll say, aim for 1,200, and they'll probably eat 15, but 15 is enough for them to lose weight. And then on the weekend, give them more of a buffer sometimes. Right. But it's really educating them the mechanism of the fat loss, but in a way where they don't need a science degree. So I want to validate you're doing a great job, but you're losing weight because you're doing this consistently and it's habit. There's nothing magical about foods, because I've lost weight eating donuts and all. Like, we know that, but I don't feel good. Period. I wouldn't recommend it. You got to find the optimal. That's why it's a lean, fit, healthy. It's, some people are extremely lean. They're not healthy.
Spectrum.
It's a spectrum. So we want to kind of find a balance, but we don't have to knock it out of the park the first 30 days. So we always have these little, 2-week experiments and just get that. You need clients to buy in, of course. They need to see something quick. Otherwise they're not going to stick to it.
Get them grabbing that low hanging fruit and start getting wins.
Yeah. And just stack them up.
Yeah. So I want to shift a little bit, still sticking with nutrition. And again, it's once you get people moving, and even I think like getting people tracking, they start getting wins. Oh yeah. And that's exciting. Right. And then, but it's almost like those beginner gains at the gym. Like, it's easy to start getting strong fast and fit fast. And then like 6 to 12 months, maybe 18 months, it all slows down. It's easy to kind of get discouraged.
Yeah.
And I've seen something similar with nutrition. If people have like a lot of weight to lose, you have more potential to get fast results really quickly. Yeah. So when they start to slow down, they start to hit those plateaus. What are some of the tactics you use to kind of reshape things and get them back on in that win column?
Yeah, great question. So a lot of the times, if they've lost a significant amount of the weight, we've got to readjust the food they're taking in. But a big thing I do is I want to bump up their calories and take a diet break. So teach them that we're going to maintain for a bit, then we'll be aggressive in the fat loss again. So we'll take it in stages. When clients are kind of going up and down and plateauing, I just let them know you're right where you're supposed to be, because that's normal. And I just suggest, if they got off of tracking, can we track a bit more? Or it's the summertime. I'm not, are you hitting the barbecue? Are you putting more sauces? Are you having that extra dessert? Letting them know that there's nothing, for the majority of the people, there's nothing wrong with they're not broken, right? There's a solution to every problem, but we need to make sure what's slipping. So we just go back to the basics to do 2 weeks back of tracking and figure out what it is, but let them know that it's a lifelong thing. If we're going to go this route, then it's going to be a struggle. It's going to be challenging, but it's a journey. And I've been doing this for, 20 years myself. And I'm still, there are times where I don't feel motivated, but I still do it because I know the benefits of it for my mental health. And I just do it because it makes me a better, human being, better husband, better dad. Yeah. So we detach from that goal and just take on that identity of this is what a healthy person does. And, the goal isn't to lose. You don't want to be like no body fat. Like, it's okay to maintain.
Just a skeleton.
Maintenance is a win itself. So educating people that it's not about fat loss only. It's about sometimes it's maintenance. It's eating better, eating on a spectrum where they're making improvements, and that there's going to be seasons, and
the habits are just as valuable as the results, right?
That's right. Yeah. And kind of detach, having those non-scale victories too helps, whether it's pictures or energy levels. And, if it's more performance based, if they start doing like Spartan races, some of my clients will do that because it's helpful. That way it's not just tunnel vision fat loss. That is important. Obviously that's what they hired me. So I don't want them to track, but also that letting them know the benefits of being, eating healthy and nutritionally working out is this, I think society as a whole would be so much better if we did that,
For sure. I agree, man. So like how much of that is built into the first conversation? Like if it's a year-long program, they're going to start gaining fast. Do you kind of talk about this might slow down at some point?
Yeah. Good question. I always, it's something like what's the best way? So it's like a vacation, let's say. When you go to a vacation, they sell you the vacation, right? They're not going to sell you the plane ride. So people want an outcome. So the first, I'm going to sell them the dream, obviously, but I'm going to cater to what they need. But the big promise in the first 3 months is that kind of rapid fat loss. So the way I would define it is like 20 to 25 pounds in 90 days. The caveat is depending on how much weight they have to lose.
Exactly.
They don't have much. And then after that, we have I don't want to have the conversation too early to deter them because they're excited about fat loss and it's hard to butt heads with someone. So, but then as the weeks progress, I slowly dabble, and with the way that I reach out to my clients on my app, I'll send them weekly messages. We talk about maintenance. We talk about phases of, the season of fitness. So they know it's coming. And then when the plateau hits, they're like, you talked it would happen, and here it is, versus why am I plateauing? Before,
it's like the air's been taken out of their tires all of a sudden. So yeah. I love that, man. Cool. Get them to fall in love with the process, and then
the process, and letting them know that, what they're going through is normal, because sometimes people internalize, well, it's just me. They put sometimes obstacles in the way, like, see, I told you this wasn't going to work, versus no, like, this is how it is for everyone. Just no one talks about it. Like, I struggle. I put on 10 pounds during the pandemic. My drinking went up early, and then my Uber eating, and, I address it. And here I am. I wasn't practicing what I was preaching. So I wasn't in alignment. I made the shift. But if someone who doesn't have that identity or the role of a fitness person, it's no surprise why they just see it such a daunting task. So letting them know what they're going through is normal, and, addressing things as they come up in advance is helpful. But the first 3 months, no, it's just kind of clear focus on dropping that 20. Then that adult conversation. Once we're out of the honeymoon phase, it's like, okay, now the work begins. It gets harder to maintain, right? Versus weight loss is fun. The fat loss component, maintenance is like, this is boring.
It's true. It's cool that, and I've gone through similar stuff, ups and downs. We all do. I think that's an issue with, we're just human. But if you frame it right, it makes you a better coach, right? If you, because you get people, you get their lives, and you're not just this robot, this AI system that's just telling them eat less, work out more.
Versus their kid just stayed up all night puking, or they have to go get their kid a COVID test. So it's like, hey man, this is a day where don't worry about it. Take care of your family. Like that happens with my coaching, because that's life. That's real coaching, versus no, you should make time. Well, most parents don't even have time to spend with their kids. But like, because we're so busy, right? It's not, I've got a dog. That's as responsible as I've gotten into parenting, but we're starting to have that conversation. So I'll probably pick your brain at some point.
Let's talk about supplementation. I think it's probably, it's a weird industry, right? It's like, I think it's over marketed and undervalued, but there is some value in certain supplements. What's your take on the quote unquote fat loss supplements? At what point, if you do introduce that to a client, and what drives that decision?
Yeah, great question. I always like to stay in my lane with my designation. I can't make recommendations. So I have a naturopath that helps me with my, I'm a big vitamin D especially those who live in Canada or the winters are harsh. The fish oil and the vitamin C are big things that works for me based on where I am. For most people, what we start off with is maybe a meal replacement or a protein supplement first, and then a multi just to cover the bases, and vitamin D as well. But I'll give them concrete like research and next steps. I love precision nutrition because I'm certified through them level 1, but
Nice.
they have some great information. So then I just send them, this is what I would do if I were you. But
Right.
you have to clear it through your doctor. Some of my clients are, they're executives. They get their labs done every year. They get a full analysis. So we have more data, and then they can make an informed decision or go to a naturopath. But for me, the vitamin D, fish oils, vitamin C, and the protein powder is what I stick to.
Yeah.
For in the past, the creatine, glutamine, but now I'm far removed for that, and I don't take those anymore. So I'm like, I'm just going to stay within those kind of.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of naturopathic treatment too. I just actually discovered one this year. She's phenomenal. So I had health issues a couple of years ago and didn't really get solved through Western. So she kind of did some testing and kind of guided me through it. So that's sweet. The creatine I sort of rediscovered a couple of years ago but more so for a mental supplement, just like as a, ATP cursor. And it helps my cognition and energy more so than I'm looking to, build the biceps sort of thing. So
I love that. I'll have to try that then, because sometimes I have those brain fogs and
it's legit. I'm just like, like mushrooms and crap like that powder. I'm taking a bunch of stuff to keep my brain.
I've heard
brain
there's a
game
mushroom infused coffee. I've always wanted to try. Forget what the brand that I always. Ryan Holiday. He's a Daily Stoic, and he takes this certain mushrooms. Just when I'm listening to his podcast, but I've never tried it. But I'm always interested in nootropics, and that's going to be that's beyond. I haven't done any research, but it intrigues me, and I think there's so much to be seen in the next 5-10 years with,
for sure,
nutritionals and things are improving brain power and mental health. So
I did a little bit of research on that, and for my book. So I just read a chapter on that kind of mental function. There's a few that are pretty good. I'll send you an early copy once it's out. Ron, let's circle back to your own habits. I think like we talked about this a little bit as a coach, there's this perspective, where people think that we have this all figured out, and it almost like creates like this like intimidation factor where they feel like this person's just not going to get me. There's no point. But we still have to stay active. We still need to figure things out. And there's like, and I find personally as a coach, there's just so many different directions and when you're doing this for so long, it's hard to keep things fresh and prioritize things. Where is your head at with what you're prioritizing? Mobility, conditioning, strength, nutrition, mental health, sleep. What is your main priority right now? What do your habits look like around that?
Oh, it's amazing. All those, I think they should all encompass one another. So for me, a big thing is I like my walks. I love being outdoors. So I'll take 4 walks a day. It compartmentalizes my day. So whether I'm working on the business, because I work from home before my kids are up, I'll go for a walk, and then I'll put my dad hat on, be a dad. And then when I take him to school, then I need another walk. So getting out for walks, and I'm a big golfer, so I'm walking 2 to 4 hours every day. Now, some of it I might be listening to a podcast. That's a big priority. I like to intermittent fast. So I like to have a window of eating. I'm not really hungry in the morning, and I enjoy coffee black just because I don't really like milk. Nothing wrong with milk. If you like milk, go ahead. So 12 to 8 is kind of the window. And because I have kids at night, I will have a snack with them, whether it's cereal. We've tried different cereals. There's Magic Spoon cereal that I've tried, and just the regular Cheerios. So we'll have a snack at night, but it's budgeted. And I'll work out 3 times a week, full body workouts. I go to this specialized gym where it's it's more machine based, Arthur Jones kind of Nautilus, but machines that I would never have access to. And I have a trainer, 30 minutes. So it's high intensity. So it's essentially like one set, all out set. And for me, it spares my joints. I don't squat as much anymore. I'm more of a golfer now. So I'm leaning out, next golf season, I'm going to be the leanest I've ever been, even in my 20s. So I'm excited about that. But my strength relatively is pretty good. I like that sort of training. So it's easier on my joints. 3 times a week, do the walks, and I prioritize sleep. I'm in bed at 8:30, like once my kids are in bed, but I'm up early. I'm up at 3:30 just because I need to work on my business, but I take a nap too. So I'm not saying people should wake up early. So a daily nap is there because the days seem long and I want my stamina to be there for my kids. So usually later on I get tired, and as an adult without kids, that's okay. But when you have kids, it's my responsibility to be my best self versus just when I'm doing podcasts or with my coaching clients. So I would never, I'm big on sleeping, and for my mental health, alcohol, I'm pretty much sober now. So it's a big change in my life because of COVID. I used to drink. I never realized that I drank excessively, but I'm from Brantford and it's normal to go out golfing and have 10 double rye and Cokes and then have 100%. Beers again, but I guess that's not normal. So and to do it week after week and then start doing the week. So, I addressed that. And so I monitor, and if I ever have more than a few drinks a week, then it's alert. I need to check things. So yeah, that's a big thing for me: the walking, the sleep, and the drinking. So
yeah, fair enough. Awesome. I'm gonna have to make sure my girlfriend hears this because she's on my ass about going to sleep at 9:15, 8:30's next level.
No, that's bad.
And I'm up at I'm up at like 5:15. That's like next level. So
well, interesting, because I found that as a parent, once your kids go to bed, you need a head start because they might not sleep. They might interrupt you. But most of my bad habits came out at night, where it'd be like, I'll be, have a couple of drinks, and it's like, we'll just go to bed, eliminate the bad habits, and nothing. Not in the past, I used to say nothing good happens after 10. Now nothing good happens after 8:30.
Just eliminate that time from your life. It just doesn't exist
YouTube,
anymore.
No Facebook. I'm trying to drown out all the noise and just kind of aim forward and, do the best I can in each area of my life each day. So just simplify.
Amazing. That's sweet, man. I love that. Well, Ronnie, it was great catching up, man. Appreciate you sitting in. This was a fantastic conversation, and we'll have to do this again sometime, bud.
Absolutely, buddy. Thank you. Great to see you. And let me know if I can help you in any way.
For sure. Cheers. All right. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you next time on Healthspan Academy.